Hey everybody, I'm Ben Gromyko from INTERNACHI. That's the International Association of Certified Home Inspectors. And behind me is the Florida House of Horrors, but actually it's just a picture. I'm not actually there. It's closed down temporarily until all this blows over and we can open up and have live training classes. But until then, I've asked certified master inspectors to take time out of their busy schedule to share what they know and keep us trained, keep us on our toes, keep us learning. You never stop learning. And I have my buddy, Dennis Bonner from Florida Insurance Inspections from Deerfield, Florida. I think that's north of Miami, north of Fort Lauderdale. And he is an INTERNACHI certified professional inspector, a certified master inspector, which is the best of the best. He's a certified instructor, so he trains other inspectors. And he wants to talk a little bit about Florida insurance inspections, the various types of insurance inspections, how to do them, the forms, how to make money. And also, he's available to take some questions in the next hour or so. So if you're attending this Zoom webinar, INTERNACHI webinar live, feel free to ask questions. There's a button somewhere that says Q&A, that's questions and answers. I can look at your questions. I'll interrupt Dennis and ask any kind of question that you want. There's also a chat too, so you can chat or ask questions. And Dennis, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Awesome, man. Hey, thanks so much for taking some time in your busy schedule. You actually pushed a home inspection in your schedule just to do this, so I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, what are we going to talk about today?
All right, so today we're going to talk about insurance inspections. Greetings to everyone out there. I'm broadcasting live here from my natural habitat, my work vehicle. We had a little bit of a scheduling issue. My office apparently isn't familiar with mountain time, so we're here on Eastern time. I actually pushed a home inspection forward a little bit, but we're going to talk about insurance inspections in Florida, which is a huge, huge part of our industry. It's actually a good timing. Today we had our first named tropical storm Gonzalo. It's about 1,000 miles off the coast of Dominican Republic. So we're looking to see, we're going to track that one in the future. It looks like there's a couple behind it too. So if you guys are familiar with Troy Bishop, follow him on social media. He tracks the storms. So with the regarding storms, we talk a lot about wind mitigation inspections. And as licensed home inspectors, you're authorized to perform those inspections. We have probably the most robust class in the industry, online, free to our members, how to perform a wind mitigation inspection. And as a licensed Florida home inspector, you're required to show proof of having completed that course when you submit a home inspection. So after you complete that course, you want to go to the end and print your certificate and attach that to your report when you send it. That way it won't get rejected by any underwriters. So that's very important to keep in mind. So the two type of inspections we're going to talk about today is the wind mitigation and the 4-point inspection. The wind mitigation is basically a survey of building features that help protect against damage from winds. So you have roof features basically and opening protection devices. With the roofs, some of it's easy. You can verify permit information for having a new roof. And that would be a discount for having a roof that's built under the Florida Building Code. So I'm going to open up a form here in a little bit. Actually, I can open that now. Give me one sec. And this is my first Zoom meeting. So it's a sign of the times. We have a worldwide pandemic with COVID-19. And I'm actually, I guess, sitting in the world epicenter, South Florida. Behind you, you can see the House of Horrors. That's where we usually teach this class. We have a hands-on wind mitigation display, which we've taught a lot of classes at, but it's not open to the public now. So we're doing this Zoom meeting. And I do recommend all inspectors take the the COVID-19 certification course that InterNACHI released at the beginning of the pandemic. It's been very helpful to me in the field with the advanced knowledge, and just being able to tell clients that I have special training and a certification in COVID-19 has been priceless. We actually haven't lost a day to any of the closures. We've been open the whole time.
Yeah, Dennis, how's business?
The business has been historically probably the second best year of my career, which goes over 15 years. The first best was when the real estate industry tanked. So '08, I believe, was the best year because all these international investors bought up all these foreclosures. And it was mostly because of insurance inspections that we were so busy. But this year has been super busy. And for me, I don't know about the rest of the country. I hear there's a lot of what they call white flight of some people leaving the cities due to the social unrest as a result of the pandemic, and some racial tensions that have built up. So we have people coming here from California and from New York City, keeping politics out of it. We do have a lower tax rate. We're more suburban than some of the big congested cities. And also insurance, Florida statewide has taken about a 20 to 30% increase for property owners insurance. So when you get like a $3,000 bill as an increase to your property insurance, the only option you have is to try to shop the market for a new policy. And if you have a 4-point that is older than 1 year old, you need to have a new 4-point to even shop for a policy. That's the way the 4-point inspection works. Is it's not just for underwriting purposes. The insurance carriers won't even look at your property unless you have a clean 4-point. So if it's less than a year old, you need to have a new one. And this year, since everyone's getting 20, 30% rate increases, they need a new 4-point. And then the wind mitigation, that'll save you up to 40% off the total cost of your wind insurance. So if that form is over 5 years old, then you need to have a new one. So a lot of my customers this year are people we did wind mits for 6 years ago. I did a 4-point for a year and 3 days ago. And regardless, you have to have a new one. Now, some clients will say, oh, you're at my house, 2 years ago and nothing's changed. I need a new wind mitt. Can you just change the date? Now, a lot of inspectors will say, well, what's the big deal? They promise nothing's changed. But my experience has been you go out to the house and when you did the inspection, it was blue and now it's green. So that's just like a huge red flag for insurance fraud. Whether or not you're purposefully trying to commit fraud, it's just not correct. So it's a different color house. That means something's not correct. And the insurance underwriters are very slick. They send out their own people. So you just have to do the right thing, charge the fee that it costs, go out. You can charge less if you want. I charge the same. And a lot of times you'll see they've made changes. So a lot of these are repeat customers. But the biggest thing bringing on this new influx of insurance inspection business is the rate increases. And
so if you're in Florida and you're just doing home inspections, that's insane. You're missing out on this huge opportunity. There's another market that you're missing out. You got to be in insurance inspections, right?
Yes. If you're only doing home inspections and not doing or insurance inspections, you're missing out on an enormous amount of business. You can do just insurance inspections and make a killing. As a matter of fact, that's all I did for my first few years in the business is just I did wind mitigation inspections for the state. They paid us to do the inspections, and then that got me into the home inspection business. But there are insurance carriers that hire inspectors full time. As a matter of fact, one of the insurance carriers that we did the the training for their underwriting, actually the whole company, People's Trust Insurance. They're one of the large insurance carriers in Florida. Internachi and myself trained the whole entire company, and we wrote the training manual for underwriting. And they actually are hiring now full-time home inspectors. They pay full salary. They pay benefits. They don't provide a vehicle, but they give you like a stipend for it and all that. And I know there's other insurance carriers that hire as well. And then if you're doing a home inspection, you sometimes people that are calling my office for a home inspection, they don't really know what they need. They say, oh, I need an inspection. So the office will say, are you buying the house or is it for insurance? I'm buying it. And then rather than saying, do you need a wind mitt and a 4-point, because they don't really know what they need half the time. You just have to assume that they need it. And you should charge extra. You don't include that for free. And if someone, like 90% of the buyers are getting a mortgage. So if you're getting a mortgage for the property that you're buying, you need to have insurance bound on that property before you can close. So they need to have a 4-point, a clean 4-point, to be able to get the insurance. So right that inspection right there could be the difference between the deal going through or not. So the 4-point a lot of times is not more important per se, but can be more of a headache. I should say. There's a lot of customer service involved with these insurance inspections. So don't do them for free. You got to charge, what you think you can get, what the market will bear.
Well, I know. Speaking of that, we already have a question from Bridget. She asks, we have in Florida, and we have insurance inspections up in North Florida, but they don't pay as much elsewhere. So will you be willing to share how much you charge? And
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Up to 5,000 square feet. That's where my prices start. A wind mitigation by itself is 100. A 4-point is 100. A roof certification, which that's another type of insurance inspection, and that's just about the roof. That is just, it asks the roof type, the age, last date of permit, and they ask the life expectancy. So it's a pretty basic inspection. It's just by itself. But if I do both of the wind mitt and the 4-point together, I charge $145. Now, if it goes over 5,000 square foot, it starts at like $195. But years ago, when the roof certification first came out, I was just throwing those in. Like, oh, well, it's just one more form. And then it became a pain in the ass. I would get out there and the roof would be 3 stories high, or it would be steep, or it would be like a 2-story flat roof. And I found myself like doing a lot of extra work for nothing. And so now I charge extra $50 for the roof cert if I'm doing a wind mitt or a 4-point. So now the wind mitt went from 100 to 150, and I'm doing those like crazy now. There's an insurance carrier this year is now requiring a roof cert on any of their properties. I think it's Florida Family, I want to say. So I'm getting these roof condition certificate requests for houses built in 2010. And it's almost like free money. I hate to say that, but you go out there, the roof is clean. You just walk around, you take a picture of the front, you get on the roof, you take some pictures, you report on it, and it's easy money. Now, I know in some other areas people charge a lot less, but I don't really know what to tell you. There should be an average wind mitt for about $100, and I think that's a fair price, if not a little cheap. When we started out, a wind mitt was $150. So 15 years ago, it was $150, and now 100 is a little high, but that's what I charge.
Cool.
So yeah, you hear people doing them for $50. Definitely not worth it. And let me tell you, the reason the cost of insurance is so high is not because of hurricanes, it's because of litigation. And you hear about water loss. If you see there's a lot of restoration contractors. These are guys that, you know, they get they get referred to someone who has a leak. They call it water loss, right? And they have their big van. They come out and they set up fans, and the dehumidifiers, and air scrubbers, these little HEPA fans, and they charge up to $3,000 for leaving the fans there for 3 days. And then if they have a special mold remediation license, they can charge up to $10,000. And there's a lot of fraud involved with this. And so what they do is someone has a leaky base water heater that gets the baseboard wet. The guy gets referred by the plumber. Kickbacks are legal in that industry. So the restoration contractor can kick back $1,000 to the plumbing contractor. And then they set the fans up. They bill the insurance carrier directly, and it usually never adjudicates. So they get an attorney involved, and there's attorneys that specialize in this. So it always goes to litigation, and they end up settling these things for like $50,000 when it could have been repaired for, you know, $1,500 or something like that. And this has drove the cost of the insurance up in Florida, not hurricanes. So that's just a little lesson there. All right, so I'm going to open up a wind mitigation inspection. All right, so here, you guys can all see this?
Yes.
All right, so this is the wind mitigation form. It's a standard 1802 released by the Florida Department of Insurance Regulation. And this is standard. All insurance companies have to accept it. The Florida statute makes it, enables every homeowner entitled to discounts on their insurance if they complete this form by a licensed individual. It's changed a few times over the years, but this is the latest edition, released in 2012. So you start at the top, you got to have the date in there, the owner information, address, the year of the home. The year of the home you're going to get from the property appraiser, and you want to go at the actual year built, not the effective year built. Those are two different dates. The effective year built could be a different year than the actual year built. So like the effective year built could be a date of a last permit, or the date of it was first sold, but the actual year built would be the first year that it was built on record. So the number of stories can change sometimes. So when you take the wind mitigation course on InterNACHI, it goes over how to determine the amount of stories. I'm not going to really get into that now. So the first number one is the building code. So you want to determine what building code your structure was built under. And X, so there's A, B, or C. So A would be if it's built under the Florida building code, and that would be you would have to find a permit application date of 3102 or later. So if you have anything built in Florida and the permit application date is after 3102, it would be A. Okay? And for number two, for B, HVHZ, that's the high velocity hurricane zone. That is Dade, Miami-Dade and Broward counties only. They're a special section in the Florida building code. And so the 1994 South Florida building code is pretty much the equivalent of the 2001 Florida building code, but that started in September 1st of 1994 in these areas. So if you have a house built in Miami and it was permit date after September 1st, 1994, you would select B there, okay? And if anything is built before, anything in Florida built before 3102, you would do X, or anything built before 9/1/94 in the high velocity hurricane zone is X. So that's a pretty easy one. You're just figuring out year built dates or permit application dates, and selecting the box for that. Now, sometimes it's usually obvious, like the house was built in 08 or it's built in 1965. But what if you have something built in 1996 in Miami-Dade? So it says for homes built in 94, 95, and 96, they want a permit application date. And it's the same concept for the Florida Building Code. They're asking for 202, 203. And that's because when there's a building code change that's going to go into effect, the builders actually pull the permits as soon as possible before the code changes. So you'll see like a lot of these houses in Miami that have year bill of 94, the actual permit application date is somewhere towards the end of 93. And it goes all the way, it goes for a couple of years like that. And in fact, commercial buildings, sometimes their permits are pulled 10 years before they're actually built. So you got to look out for that. And the second part is roof covering. So this is what is known as FBC discount. So that's what the insurance industry calls it, FBC. That's Florida Building Code. And so this one, you have to basically go to the house, see what kind of roof it has, check off the boxes. So this one here just had a, let's see, first, this is in Plantation, that's Broward County, built in 1989. So that was before 94, X unknown. And so the roof covering was a concrete tile roof, permit application date 3/24/04, the permit number here, and then the application date again over here. And so that is built in accordance with the Florida Building Code because it was built after '02. Okay, so he's going to get the FBC credit. So these boxes here, this one, the top A applies to a roof that gets the credit, is installed after '02. B would be in the HVAC if the permit was after 9/1/94, between 9/1/94 and 3/1/02, or the house is built 97 or later. That would be FBC for Dade or Broward, okay? And C or D is none, or C is just one of them doesn't meet. So let's say you have a house with the concrete tile roof that meets the Florida Building Code, but a flat roof that doesn't. So that would be one does not meet, okay? Because you have a flat roof that doesn't meet the building code. So you're gonna have one or more does not meet. Now, if you don't have any permit information, or the house is built before '02 or 94, and you don't have any permit information, or the house has an old roof, it's going to be none, does not meet, okay? So again, this one is just about figuring out dates, ages. That's one difference between these insurance inspections and home inspections. Home inspections, you're allowed a little more leeway. You can estimate, the roof appears to be 10 to 15 years old, no deficiencies observed. In Florida, you're required to verify the permit date, get the permit number, the permit application date. You're expected to give a life expectancy, and people will hold it against you. Oh, you said my roof has 4 years life expectancy, and it's 2 years and it's leaking. How do you answer that? Also, so for the 4-point, it's like common knowledge that it needs to have 3 years or more life expectancy. As a matter of fact, I had an inspection yesterday when the roof was from 2004, and it was an utter disaster. So the listing agent and the buyer's agent wanted a little summary at the end of the inspection. This is for actual home inspection. And I said, the roof is god awful. It's going to need a new roof. It's got, 11 different leaks. There's rotted roof decking. You can stick your finger through it. And the listing agent says, well, can you at least give it 5 years for the 4-point? I said, absolutely not. And he said, well, that's going to be a problem. I'm like, I realize it's going to be a problem. But you get a lot of pushback on that. So you'll submit these 4 points. You're going to say the roof has 1 year life expectancy, and you're going to almost guaranteed get a callback. Yep. Guaranteed. So there's a lot of customer service. There's a lot of drama involved with these. You're not everybody's friend. I'm famous for saying the hardest part about doing a 4-point is passing one. Because when we get into the 4-point, you'll see they ask all these very specific questions, and it's very easy to find something that is considered a deficiency on the 4-point, and they just failed. Now, most of these people I'm doing the inspections for live in their house. They're minding their own business. They just got a letter. So the insurance agent forwarded my information, and they think it's just, it is. It's just a standard formality to keep their policy in place. And guess what? They need a new roof. They need to change their electrical panel. And all this bad things can happen as a result of me walking through their house. And it's not every day. It's not like that, but I'm going to tell you, it can be problematic. So you have to get your spiel down, have your, just get used to it. All right. So roof deck attachment number 3, that's how your plywood roof deck is attached to the trusses. So you have in your roof structure, you have trusses or rafters, and then you have the plywood on top of the truss. And when a roof is nailed down. So it's either nailed down with 6D nails, 8D nails, staples, and there's specific spacing, how far away the nails are together. And depending on how the roof is fastened, you have these boxes here. So it's either A is the weakest and C is the best. Now, if something is nailed to code, 02 or later or 94 later, it should always be C. That's going to be called attachment C. If something is with 6D nails or staples, it's going to be attachment A. That's the weakest. B would be 8D nails spaced 12 inches apart. That's going to be sort of rare to find that anymore. But that's why you have your metal scanner. Your zircon metal scanner. They have other scanners too, but this is the one that we always recommend. And we have tutorials. If you've ever seen the videos that Ben and I did in Florida, it shows you how to use the scanner in the attic. It just picks up nails on the rafter as you go down. It goes beep, beep, beep. And you make a little mark on the rafter. And then you can figure out your spacing there by measuring the nail, measuring the spacing. You make little marks and you take pictures. And we'll show you in the picture section on this report. So depending on how the roof deck is nailed, and again, always go back to the how to perform a wind mitigation class on InterNACHI, because it goes through all these sections in detail, right? So you should take that course, get your certificate, and then practice on a few houses and understand what you're looking at before you go out and do it in the field. And then we have the number 4, the roof to wall attachment. That's how the trusses or the rafters are attached to the exterior wall. And that's what, Troy would tell you, completes the load path, holds the rafter down on top of the wall. And it's basically broken down to A, B, C, D, E, all the way to H, but there's only a few that are typical. So A always being the weakest, that's toenails. That's your typical framed rafters connected to the top plate with a metal nail, or straps or clips that do not meet the minimum definitions to qualify for a clip or strap. So if we look at the metal conditions, they have to have 3 nails minimum, and they have to be attached to the top of the wall with no more than a 1-inch space. Now, when I show you these pictures, I'll explain that space. So we have clips, single wraps, double wraps, structural. Again, go to the class. Look at all the differences. A clip basically doesn't wrap over, has 3 nails, or it could be a strap that doesn't meet the requirements. It's a little inside baseball for this Zoom course. So I recommend taking the online InterNACHI course. We have like numerous examples and different pictures, so you can see what the differences are. Roof geometry, another inside baseball one. It could be complicated. Basically, the hip roof is the only one that gives you a discount because of its aerodynamic shape. It sheds the wind off, and it has to be 90% or more hip shape to get that discount. Again, go to the class, learn how we measure, learn the differences in types of roof shapes. As a background for all these courses, you should be taking not only the how to do a wind mitigation course, you should take the how to inspect roofs, plumbing course, electric course, HVAC course. That's crucial background information for the 4-point inspection. So I don't recommend watching me do a Zoom course or watching any of my videos and then trying to become a insurance inspector. I recommend taking all the courses, getting your CPI, getting your wind mitigation certificate. So secondary water resistance, that's that's a primary layer of the roof covering other than the actual roof covering. So that's something that would be applied on top of the roof deck. Some ice and water shield is a type. It's a self-adhering, so like a tape, peel and stick, and it can either cover the seams or the whole roof deck and goes underneath the roofing material. So typically you need to have documentation or photos of that being applied during the roofing process to verify that. Some inspectors say you can see it through the seam under the plywood, but the best way is to get pictures from during the re-roofing or have documentation. And it's only like a $10 discount for a year. So it's not that big a deal, but every dollar counts. So people will take it seriously. Someone says they have it and they want to get the discount, you have to humor them and look through their documentation and do your best to get it for them. So opening protection, that's a big one, especially in South Florida. It's been required on new structures after September 1st, 1994. And then in the rest of Florida, as long as you're in the wind-borne debris region, it's been required after '02 for most parts, some sections '06 because they changed the map. So you can go to Google and look up the Florida wind speed map. We also have that in the InterNACHI course, but you can Google just about anything. And if you look up the map, you can see where the wind-borne debris regions are on the coast. And some of that stuff's a little political, as you, if you saw the hurricane a few years ago, I believe it was Matthew. Was it Michael? Troy would know. It decimated the Panhandle. It was god awful mess, and they were saying for years that they couldn't get anything above a Category 3. It was clocked in at a Category 5, I believe, and it was devastating. So if you guys seen Troy's presentation, you could see the houses just ripped off their foundations, all these wood frame structures built right on the coast there, and just got worked. So this is the opening protection level chart, and this talks about shutters, impact windows, windows and entry doors. This is glazed openings and glazed openings and non-glazed openings. Glazed openings is any window or door that has glass. Non-glazed is any window or door that has no glass, it's solid. So you have to look at the windows, entry doors, garage doors, skylights, glass block, entry doors, garage doors, and figure out if they meet this criteria. So this criteria is testing criteria for doors, windows, shutters, etc. And we basically have large and small missile impact. PA 201, 202, 203, again, inside baseball. Take the online InterNACHI course. For the purposes of this Zoom meeting, we're going to talk about X, unprotected, not rated, or impact rated. And so this particular client here looks like they had nothing. So that's usually an easy one. And again, it's usually pretty easy. It's usually like they have nothing, or they have several unprotected, or they have everything. Now, some of them, they have like some that are hard to figure out. So you can get bogged down with research on this, but it gets better after time, after you get more experience. Me, I'm like Antique Roadshow with this stuff. I can almost see it from a mile away, but we don't do testing on site. So we're not Antique Roadshow. That's actually a fair point. People you'll say, listen, these shutters have no permit, they have no labels. I need to be able to prove that they're verified. And the client will say, well, what the hell am I paying you for? And you'll get this all the time. And listen, we're not Antique Roadshow. All we are is verifying stuff. We're not testing on site. Even Troy, who I keep referring to, he's a Florida a registered professional engineer. He's the highest credentialed professional in this industry. He writes building code. He wrote a lot of these testing criteria. If you're researching NOAs, that's notice of acceptance, that's what a product has to receive to be verified as tested and meeting the impact criteria. Troy does those. Some like maybe 40% of those NOAs or Florida approvals, you'll find Troy's stamp and signature at the end of those. he wrote the building code for rooftop HVA equipment, high wind tie downs, and like a bunch of other stuff. And he can't even certify things on site. So he's the top credentialed guy. He can only verify if it's passed the test or not. So these things are actually tested in a laboratory. There's one on Miami-Dade. I think Troy has video of it. They shoot 2x4s out of cannons and little steel balls at windows and doors. And if they pass the test, they get the stamp and they get an NOA. So that's how you find out if something's certified or not. Now, real quick, this last section, this is where you put your name, your company number, your license type. This one has my license as my certified general contractor. You would put your home inspector information here, click on which one it is. And if you are a licensed home inspector, remember you have to attach your certificate that you've passed the course that you get at the end of the InterNACHI How to Perform a Wind Mitigation course. That's key, because if you send this out as a licensed home inspector without attaching that course, it could be rejected. That just causes a problem for the agent and the homeowner. And you don't want to piss anyone off because of customer service issues, but you also don't want to lose a potential referral business from that agent. I tell a lot of my students that realtors are great. They send you home inspections, but how many home inspections does a realtor do per year? Maybe like a really good agent, maybe like a few a month. Now, an insurance agent, they do hundreds a month, like hundreds and hundreds of properties a month. And they work with hundreds of realtors. So if you get one good insurance agent, that could be like having 100 realtors. Remember that. So down here, you're going to sign your name, put your date, all that stuff. And these are supposed to be signed, okay? So you want to figure out how you're going to have your report signed. A lot of inspectors will say, well, I've never had to sign in all these years. I've never had a problem. But the bottom line is they're required to be signed. I'm not sure why this one's not. Maybe there was no one there. Okay, this one was the home inspection. There was no one there. So that's why they didn't sign it. But this actual home inspection client was an insurance agent. So I'm sure he can figure out how to get it signed. Anyway, so here's the pictures. So required pictures, you have to have pictures of all sides of the house. The house number is key to always not only keep your photos in order, but just so you prove that this is the correct address. So we're looking at the front of the house. It's obviously not a hip roof. These are big gables. Okay. This is a label of a window. I know it's upside down. If you see this TAS 201, 202, 203, large missile impact rated. So that is obviously, I wrote some impact windows and doors. Now, this was sort of a half-assed wind mitigation, I'm going to admit, off the get. They didn't have all impact. It was like maybe a quarter of the house. So when we're tasked with verifying the opening protection, it asks us what's the weakest level of opening protection. And when it's a majority unprotected, I'm not going to really hone in on verifying all the impact ones because this is a huge house. Now, if it was 90% impact, I would hone in on that and then separate all the unprotected ones because they're probably going to follow up with the reinspection. They're going to fix those weaker openings. And then when I go back 6 months, a year, 2 years, whatever, I have my previous inspection and it's very clear. So I only have to check the 3 unprotected openings. Obviously, I'm going to look, make sure nothing else has been changed. But for this one, it was mostly unprotected. So I didn't really get too specific on the details, if that makes any sense. All right, so we had a glazed unprotected garage door. So that right there would bar any opening protection discounts. But you always want to show for your garage door picture, show the whole door and then the label of it. This one had no label, but it was clearly a 1989 non-impact garage door. So you have a picture of the right. Always put a picture of the pool, whether you're doing a 4-point or a wind mitigation. For underwriting purposes, they need to see a picture of the pool. For insurance, it has to be clear. The water quality has to be clear. And it has to be full. If you have a client who the pool's it's dark, it's poor water quality, or it's empty, you want to advise them that it's going to be a problem for them. And one way or the other, the insurance carrier is going to have to see the pool. But definitely don't sneak it in there on your client. You know, same with things like trampolines or Doberman pinchers or Rottweilers. There's a certain type of pet breed, which there's a good chance their insurance carrier has a list of acceptable breeds. So if you notice your client has a mastiff or whatever kind of dog, you might want to say, hey, listen, on the down low, talk to your agent, make sure that one's allowed, because they could get denied a claim. And this is a very litigious society. I've had plenty of clients get lawsuits filed because their dog scared some old lady and she fell down. All right, so you have pictures of the rear elevation here, the back, the other back, the far right back, and then the left. These are some unprotected windows. So we have, so we're getting down to the roof deck attachment pictures. So we have a 1/2-inch roof deck. I just take a picture of the stamp. That's the easiest way. Other ways you can do it is stick a measuring device in between the seams. That's another way. And then I took a picture of the roof deck fastener. So we have a 6D nail. So that's going to be attachment A, because they have to, for a B or C, it has to be a minimum 8D nail. So the 6D nail is going to be attachment A. We already know that. We looked at the top. And this one here, here's the fastener. From this picture, it looks like it's installed within a 1/2 inch, and then it has 3 nails. It does not wrap over. So we gave it clips. Now, a point of maybe mention is that these nails aren't even all the way driven in. So that could be questionable. But I'm not like the Gestapo here. I'm really not trying to, I'm not trying to put too much information or too little. I'm trying to be like right in the middle. I'm working for this client. They're paying me. But I'm not, there's like a fine line. I'm not trying to wear out my welcome with the insurance industry either. So it can be a little bit of a juggling act, but you have to use your best judgment. You know, based on experience, you'll figure out what you're comfortable with. I always tell my students, as long as you put your head on the pillow at night and it's quiet, there's no committee in effect. You shouldn't be getting too much committee. You shouldn't be questioning whether or not you're committing insurance fraud, because if you're even questioning it, then chances are you're leaning towards the wrong side of what you should be comfortable with. All right, and then we had unverified skylights. Those are also openings that need to be verified. And then I had a window permit that I found. Now, the permit information is vital to be able to look up. I use BuildFax. You get a discount on BuildFax with your InterNACHI membership. BuildFax is a wonderful company to work with. They're based out of, I believe, Asheville, North Carolina. They're very receptive to input and very helpful if you need any help. So I've been using them for years. I highly recommend it. And then the roof permit. I was shocked to see that this roof had an actual permit because it was a piece. But that was the wind mitt. Okay. And so let's look at the 4-point that I did. So here is the 4-point that I did. Now this one was an actual home inspection. So when I'm doing the home inspection, so when I'm doing a 4-point for someone that lives in their house and it's just a routine thing for their insurance, I'm sort of doing the 4-point like this. These are my blinders. In my heart of hearts, I want everyone to pass. Now, the hardest thing to do is pass a 4-point. But when you live in your house, you're minding your own business, you take care of your house, I'm showing up like this. I got my fingers crossed the whole time. Please no double tap breakers. Please have a TPR discharge pipe. Please, oh please, don't have a Federal Pacific panel. It's basically Home Inspector 101 is the 4-point inspection, okay? But believe it or not, everyone has a little deficiency. Now, you might have just passed your course. You might have just got licensed. Don't go out there to every unsuspecting homeowner and do an 18-page 4-point and look for every tiny thing. Try to be kind. Try to do this a little bit. But don't do any insurance fraud. You have to note double tabs. You have to note this. You have to note that. but just don't put more information than this form actually asks for. That's my best advice. Now, a home inspection is another thing. Someone's buying this house. They don't live there. They're not minding their own business. They're gonna use this against you. Someone told me a very old saying, "No good deed goes unpunished." They're gonna ask you, "Oh, this roof, it only needs 3 years. Can't you just change that 1 year to 3 years? Please, I just need it to say 3 years for it to pass, for this deal to go through." That's the first person that's going to call you when the roof leaks, and you're going to get a lawyer or a letter from their attorney, or the first 4-point that you falsify and sneak in someone else's water heater. That's the one that you're going to get brought up to you in a deposition 7 years later for some stupid lawsuit, right? So these things do come back to haunt you. Be as honest and thorough as possible, but don't be overkill. There's like a fine line. Sometimes it's not an obvious fine line. So here's a 4-point. It asks about electrical system, the total amps. Is the amperage sufficient for current use? Now, we're not qualified to do load calculations, so you're not an electrical engineer like Gordon. We have an electrical engineer also who teaches at the House of Horrors. He's probably the highest credentialed instructor in the country. I hope he's going to do one of these soon. But so no load calculations. If it's a single family residential house and it's under 60 amps, that's going to be no. Okay. Now it's going to ask if there's any presence of the following: cloth wiring, active knob and tube, aluminum wiring, and then aluminum wiring repairs. Okay. Now that stuff is more inside baseball. I do have a presentation just about 4 points, and I have a history of wiring. There's actually not that much information about the history of wiring, but I did put together a course about that, and you will find it's hard to find life expectancy for wiring. You get life expectancy on copper, you get life expectancy on aluminum, but not the actual whole wire assembly. The national associations of like fire control or whatever, they won't even give you that. But the insurance industry wants us, for some reason they think we have that. But I don't have all the information right here. I don't think we have time. Anyway, so this is going to ask about hazards present, blown fuses, tripping breakers, empty sockets, typical electrical deficiencies. I have here other: main panel obstructed by cabinet in the garage, unable to remove the cover. So this one, you'll see there's a picture. There's a cabinet built on top of the cover, and I couldn't even inspect it. So that's obviously deficiency. I believe it's like 3 feet rule. You have the clearance. InterNACHI has a great graphic just explaining that. And that's the National Electric Code. A lot of inspectors ask or state, there's like a debate: are we code inspectors? Are we not code inspectors? Ben told me that the InterNACHI standard of practice was based on the International ICC Residential Building Code. So we're not enforcing the code, but I believe our standard of practice is based on the code. So it's my opinion that you're more than within your legal rights to cite code. So when there's something like a panel being obstructed, I'll be more than happy to cite the National Electrical Code that requires 3 feet. And there's other codes which I often cite. So don't be scared by the code. So this one asks about the main panel age, the year of last update, and the brand model. Asks wiring type: copper, non-metallic, BX, or conduit. HVAC system, you're basically going to ask the date of the AC, the date of last update, the age, the year of last update. And this, for the 4-point inspection, unless the thing's leaking, it's pretty much going to pass. But there are other things about space heaters, wood-burning stove, not professionally installed. So be on the lookout for those things. We don't really use space heaters in South Florida. It's always 100 degrees here. So we have your typical, HVAC condenser, air handler. It's a plumbing system. It's asking about the water heater. Does it have the TPR valve? And then you always want to have the age and the location of the water heater. And those are important. That's important information. and the and the pictures. And then it asks about the general condition of all these things over here, satisfactory, unsatisfactory. No, you're not required to test all the appliances. Just look at them, see if there's any leaks, if there are any obvious deficiencies. And then if you have something unsatisfactory, there's a little space for you here. So in this case, he had a disconnected vent stack in the attic. And I'll show a picture of that. In the plumbing system, it asks about the age of the piping, supply, and the drain. It asks if it was original, completely repiped, or partially repiped. So this is where your permit history search will come into effect. Sometimes you have to estimate or do a little investigation with your client. So if you have an old house that looks freshly remodeled, you're going to say, hey, when was the last time you updated this? And then you could put approximately updated in 2010 or whatever. In this case, it was original. This house was built in '89. And then it's going to identify the types of supply, the type of drain. Typical issues you'll run into on the type of supply would be polybutylene or galvanized. Again, Home Inspector 101. And then on the drain side, typically an issue you could run into is cast iron drains. And those are, older. They fail about 50 years. And that's the plumbing section. And then down to the roof. So this is the roof section of the 4-point, which is the same as the roof condition certificate, same exact information. And basically predominant roof and secondary roof. So both roof covering types, it's typically going to be a shingle or a metal or a concrete tile, clay tile, whatever, as your predominant, and the secondary might be a flat modified bitumen or membrane. So it's asking the roof material covering type, and you have like a bunch of different options here. And this is a form that was made by John Chinchilla, and it's your standard citizens form. It's basically the industry standard. If you want a copy of this form, you can go to Florida Inspectors Group on Facebook. There is a files section, and the forms are there. If you have Adobe Acrobat, you can get these forms and fill them yourselves. There's picture pages, and they're fillable, and you can sign them. Same with the 1802, that's available in the same area. And the citizens form is basically the industry standard. Other insurance carriers do have their own. State Farm, for instance, that one's a little more detailed, and that's not the industry standard. There are other forms. There's like a plumbing certification form from Florida Family, but you have to be a licensed contractor to fill that one out. So for everyone out there, the citizens form is the standard. At the very least, they require, all insurance carriers require this as the minimum amount of information. So be careful with certain home inspection software companies that have their own little WinMIT or 4-point form. Don't use any WinMIT form that's not the standard 1802. That will be rejected. And don't use any 4-point form that might have less information than this. In my opinion, and my recommendation is to use this exact form. This is released by Citizens, which is like the Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac of insurance in the state of Florida. Okay, so I would stick with this. Back to the roof section here. So the roof type, this one's concrete tile. Roof age, remaining useful life, I gave it 1 year. And this is one when the listing agent says, well, can you not at least give it 5 years? I need it to get 5 years to close. But as you'll see the picture of this roof, I'm not giving it 5 years.
Hey, Dennis, Donald asks on the roof cert, is it a requirement to walk on all of the roofs? Do you got to go up there and walk on them?
No, it's not a requirement.
Yeah.
This form requires you to provide photos. Does it say here?
I think on the roof section it says photos.
It's a limited visual survey. All right, it says
Each
roof
slope.
with photos of each roof slope.
Yeah.
So that's what it requires. Whether you walk on there or not is entirely up to you. This one I didn't walk on. You'll see pictures. It was like an 8-pitch, loose concrete tile. I put my ladder up to the E. First of all, you could see the whole thing from the ground. But I want to walk on every roof. I want to actually get up there and touch it. I want to poke at some of the wood. I want to look at the skylights. But if it doesn't feel safe, there's no way in hell I'm getting up there. So you can use a drone or you can lean at the eaves, but you want to get the best amount of pictures that you can get. And this says here, photos of each roof slope. Now I'll tell you, if you're failing the roof, they don't give a crap what the photos look like. So they'll only really get, well, I should say, like if you're failing a roof, the homeowner and the insurance agent are going to bust your chops, right? But the insurance carrier won't. If you're passing it, that's when the insurance carrier starts quality controlling your work. So if you're passing a roof, but you have half-assed photos of only one side of the roof, then they might reject it. But if you're passing the roof and you have photos showing the whole thing in really nice condition, then you're good to go. So if you get them with the drone, or you can lean your ladder and get them that way, or have one of those poles, then you're good to go.
Edwin Perez is asking, how do you decide the remaining years? If it looks in good shape, or is it passing the life expectancy? You know, how
well, we have Internationally has a life expectancy chart, which is a good starting point. And then based on experience, I should say, having been on thousands of roofs, I can look at a roof and tell what I think the life expectancy should be. Like, for instance, a tile roof, you're looking at like, depending on like if it's a new tile roof, you could say it's got 25 years life expectancy, right? But let's say if it's a 25-year-old tile roof and it's in great shape, you could maybe say it's got 5, maybe 10. But if the thing is in bad shape, it doesn't matter. It's going to be 1. If anything less than 3. So they have to have 3 years minimum life expectancy. This is the way the life expectancy works. It has to have 3 years. So anything less than 3 years, it's uninsurable. Yeah. But 3 years will trigger a non-renewal, because if I give 3 years, tomorrow it has less than 3 years, if that makes sense. So 4 years means 1 year and a day. So even if you put 3 years, you think you're doing someone a favor, they're still going to call back and say, I need 5 years. So be careful when you start. That's when it gets down to the nitty gritty, is when that thing is a tile roof. It's in fair looking condition and it's 25 years old. And you're like, ooh,
right,
3 years. And then you still think you're doing them a favor. They're still going to want 5 years. So it can be a little bit of a juggling act, I have to admit. But like my rule of thumb is like, for tile roof max 50 years. And I know that's like crazy, but you do have some like Bermuda roofs in Bermuda that are 120 years old. And those are concrete roofs, right? They're like tile and they're maintained and they're almost 120 years old. Same with sort of some slate roofs. Now that's a stretch. In Florida, we have some Bermuda roofs and they're 70 years old and they look great. And we have some 20-year-old tile roofs that are completely shot because the workmanship went downhill in the 80s, 70s, 80s, 90s. It was like crap. So 20, 25 for tile, unless it's an older tile, maybe 50 max. Shingle, 20, 25. Flat, 10 to 15. And then you have to use your judgment, because sometimes flat roofs in the city are covered with soot and they look god awful if they're under trees. But sometimes you have like a flat roof that's 15 years old and looks really, really good. So it can vary a little bit. Yeah. But the good starting point is InterNACHI's life expectancy chart. Yeah. Let's just get into this form real quick. I'm running out of battery and time here. Yep. So real quick, I'm going to go through these pictures. Yep. Again, you need elevation pictures of all the sides. You need the AC with the data labels. You can get the age and the size off the data label. You get that information through the HVAC course, InterNACHI. Plumbing, you need pictures under all the sinks of the drains and the valves and supply lines. You need a picture of the laundry valves here. That's required. AC, you need a picture of the water heater label. The electrical panels, with the cover on and the cover off. Another water heater, just a picture showing the water heater with the label. And you do your little inspection, then you include the picture. If there's no deficiencies, then you just have a picture and everything's fine. So this was the panel that was obstructed in the garage with the cabinet over it. So that was the reason it fails the electrical portion of the 4-point. And then in the roof deck, we have some wood rot here, some wood rot there, some wood rot here, cracked tile here. See how it was very steep? I didn't walk on that because those tiles on the bottom row were loose. So I'm not going to bust my butt trying to walk on this roof. You see a patch around the skylight. There was also water damage on the interior ceiling. Little ghetto patch here. Another rotted roof deck, a disconnected stack, and you can see the open, oops. This is, sorry. You could see the little hole in the roof deck, and that was it. Now, when there's like 4 billion deficiencies on a house, you're going to run out of picture paper. Just one thing fails a 4-point. It's a pass or fail, right? So that was my little 4-point. I could probably go all day. I have like hundreds of these things. They're all different. No inspection's the same. Again, the hardest thing to do is pass. And I don't know.
Yeah, Dennis, before you go, we have one more question from Francisco. What form do you use for a wind mitt on a condo? What 4-point form for condos? What about condos instead of these single detached?
4-point form is the same for the condo. You just do on the main roof, the association roof as the roof portion. Everything else is the same. The wind mitt, if you're doing the condo for the unit owner only, you're going to use the 1800 form, same form we just looked at, but you're only reporting on that unit, and you're doing the roof structure as the main association roof. So you have to get attic access, or unless it's a high rise, then you report it. You have to just get a picture of the top of the roof and showing the concrete roof structure, and then you'll report on that interior unit only. And if they have their front doors into the hallway, then you're not reporting on that door, just the windows and the balcony, okay? Yep. But if it's for the whole building, then there's a form called the Type 2 and Type 3 form, and that's a different form which we don't teach, primarily because you have to be a certified general contractor, architect, or engineer to complete that. You can't do that if you're just a licensed home inspector.
And Francisco asks, when a client asks for a roof inspection for the purpose of an insurance claim, what's the roof form? What's the roof inspection form? That's not the 1802.
It depends if they want a roof mitigation, that's the 1802, or if they want a roof condition certificate. That's the citizen's roof condition certificate. That's a specific form. It's the same exact information as the 4-point that we found. If you can't, right. I don't have it right here, but just Google it, Citizens Roof Condition Certificate, and it comes right up. And it's also available on the Florida Inspectors Facebook group in the file section.
Yep. Uh-oh. It looks like you're breaking up. Uh-oh, we may have lost Dennis. Good, we got the last question in. So Dennis, if you can hear me, thank you so much. Everybody attending, thank you so much. Dennis Bonner from Florida Inspections, really appreciate taking your time out. And he went all the way to the end till his battery crapped out on him. So thank you so much, Dennis. I really appreciate it. It was a great presentation. And this has been an InterNACHI webinar with Dennis Bonner from Florida Insurance Inspections down in Florida, teaching us about all kinds of Florida insurance inspections and forms and making money doing it. And so thank you, everybody. I'm Ben Gromicko from InterNACHI. This has been an InterNACHI webinar. We have a ton of other webinars at nachi.org/webinars. So I'll see you then. Bye, everybody. Stay safe and healthy.